was a famous actress 10 years ago. When the paparazzi spotted me again, I was delivering food with a child on my back. As soon as the news broke, people sighed, saying I played my cards all wrong. That night, I got 3 phone calls. Jason, a business mogul with a cold voice. Send the child back to my house. Someone like you doesn't deserve to raise her. Jack, a top star, through gritted teeth. If the paparazzi hadn't caught you, how long were you planning to hide this from me? Lucas, a prince of the underworld, sounded angry. Joan, you brought this on yourself, but don't let my child suffer with you. Later, Jason knelt in the rain. Jack apologized to me in front of hundreds of microphones, and Lucas even tried to atone with his life. Joan, please, it doesn't matter if the child isn't mine, as long as you're willing to come back to me. But back then, they were the ones who ruined me. Recently, the weather has been terrible, and my bike broke down while I was delivering food. Rain started pouring, so I carried Alice in one arm, held the food in the other, and dashed into the nearest subway station. Mommy, you're soaked, Alice said, wiping my rain-soaked shoulder with her little hand. I'm okay, I smiled at Alice. Are you cold, Alice? Alice shook her head. She's only 2.5, and since she isn't registered, she can't go to kindergarten. I have no choice but to take her with me while delivering food. A passenger ahead was watching an interview on their phone. The interviewee was the popular actress, Lisa. Lisa is dazzling, the host's fawning voice came through. I heard that 3 famous men pursued you. Lisa smiled sweetly and quietly acknowledged. The host didn't name names, but the online chat was already buzzing about the 3 big names. No way could the rumors be true. Jason, Jack, Lucas. Oh my god, Lisa really is a goddess. I'd love a book on how she handles men. I'd definitely buy it. My thoughts started drifting. Alice's cry brought me back to reality. She had been jostled by a passenger getting off the train. I pulled out a cheese stick I'd prepared for her, and she immediately stopped crying and started eating quietly. The subway finally reached my stop. I grabbed the food and rushed out, sprinting to the office building, but I was still very late. I'm sorry, my bike broke down, so I had to take the subway. I kept explaining, but the customer pushed me to the ground. It's all cold. How am I supposed to eat this? The food box shattered, and I sat in a puddle of sour soup, utterly miserable. Even so, I kept mechanically repeating, I'm sorry, please don't give me a bad review. The customer was about to say something else, but Alice ran over, hugging me and crying. I was stunned. When I was pushed down, when I kept apologizing, I felt numb. At that moment, my heart ached. I didn't want Alice to see her mother like this. Why did you come here? I told you to wait around the corner. I scolded Alice, my own eyes reddening. The customer frowned, looking at the 2 of us sitting on the ground, and grumbled, fine, just go. People in the office building were already starting to whisper. I picked up Alice, bowed, and quickly left. On the way, I softly asked Alice, is mommy really that useless? Alice shook her head. Mommy works hard. My eyes reddened again. When I got home, I checked my phone and saw I'd been photographed. Someone in the office building recognized me and recorded the whole scene. The headline read, former actress becomes a single mom, delivers food with child. The images were heartbreaking. The first showed me at the elevator, carrying a child and a large bag of food. The second showed me on the ground, food scattered everywhere. The third showed a child running to hug me. The initial comments were sympathetic, saying how hard it must be for a young mom to earn a living while caring for a child. Someone who recognized me commented, that's Joan. She debuted at 17 with the movie Memories, and was really popular. I've seen that movie. The female lead was stunning. Can't believe it's her. How come she hasn't had any projects since then? Such a pity. Then came a flood of accusations. The internet never forgets. Did everyone forget how Joan was a bully in school? Yeah, she bullied Lisa. What? Even someone as good as Lisa got bullied. She deserves to die. Lisa's fans mobilized, explaining to everyone in the comments. When Lisa was still a high school girl, Joan, who was already a rising star, bullied Lisa in various ways. The news gained more and more traction. That night, Lisa personally posted on Facebook, it's okay. All the past hurts have become the shining armor I wear today. Her post drew countless comments. Lisa, you're so strong and kind. At least Lisa is shining now, pursued by so many big names. Lisa, Jason, Jack, and Lucas. Who do you like best? Whoever she chooses, Lisa will be happy. Not like that bitch, who can only roll in mud with her illegitimate child. I put down my phone and held Alice. Her chubby face was sleeping soundly against me. Sometimes, I'm grateful she can't read yet. so she doesn't see the filth people write about her mom online. I laid Alice on the bed when suddenly the phone rang. I picked it up, recognizing the clear, cold voice. It's me. It took me a moment to realize. I hadn't heard that voice in about 3 years. You know who I am, right? It was Jason. His company had just gone public, and now he's a billionaire CEO. I saw the news. Jason's voice was as cold as ever. Why didn't you tell me? Tell you what, I frowned. Jason, the child isn't yours. Jason chuckled lightly on the other end. He didn't believe me at all. Tomorrow night, I'll pick her up myself, he said. The child must be raised in my house. A mother like you is not fit to educate her. Before I could say anything, he interrupted. Don't misunderstand. I'm just picking up the child. I won't give you any status. He hung up the phone. Listening to the busy tone, I sensed what was coming. I guessed it wouldn't be just Jason calling. Sure enough, less than 5 minutes later, the phone rang again. Hello, Joan, you hired the paparazzi, didn't you? If any fan heard this voice, they would recognize it instantly. Top star Jack. He blew up last year. Gained countless fans. The next reliable intel said he's pairing with Lisa for a new drama. Fans are already shipping them like crazy. You hired people to take pictures, just to show me, right? Of course, being a top star, he's familiar with entertainment industry tactics. Too bad he guessed wrong. Jack, I sneered, if I had the money to hire paparazzi, I'd rather buy more baby formula. Jack went silent for a moment. After a while, he spoke softly. I'll take care of the child. I'll pick him up tomorrow night. Why? I almost laughed. He's not even your kid. What will your fans think? Jack didn't believe either. I heard him discussing with his agent on the other end, and then he hung up. I sighed, waiting in peace. Alice woke up, rubbing her eyes, and asked me, Mom, what are you doing? I teased her, waiting for a call from your third dad. Alice wasn't interested at all. She hugged her teddy bear, turned over, and went back to sleep. A few minutes later, the phone rang again. The voice on this one would probably be louder. To avoid waking Alice, I went to the hallway to answer. Just as I guessed, the voice on the other end was irritable. Joan, you had a kid behind my back, and you think you're all that, huh? My throat hurt, so I sucked on a lozenge and explained helplessly again. The kid isn't yours. Spare me the act. He spat. You're a woman who can't tell the truth. Of course, years of no contact. Lucas's temper had only gotten worse. Someone softly asked beside him, Boss, what's going on? Lucas yelled back, Get lost. After chasing off his subordinate, Lucas's voice came back on. Joan, you deserve to live like this, but my child can't suffer with you. I was exasperated. Why do you think the child is yours? Cut the crap, Lucas growled. I'll come get the kid tomorrow afternoon. I laughed out of frustration. How about evening? I suddenly suggested. He was stunned for a moment and then said, Evening it is. You try to run, and I'll break your legs. I giggled. I won't run. I'll wait for you. Maybe my tone was too cheerful. Lucas hesitated again. Joan, get this straight. I'm only picking up the child. I don't want any ties with a woman like you. I didn't reply, just smiled and hung up. I couldn't help but look forward to the show tomorrow night. The next evening, Jason's secretary texted me. Jason has an important meeting. He'll be late. I replied, then I'll go find him. The secretary's tone was haughty. Jason says this is a high-end place. You wouldn't fit in. Oh, I said, tell him I and the child live in low-end places. He wouldn't fit in here either. Better for us never to meet again. There was a moment of silence before an address appeared. I entrusted Alice to the neighbor lady, while Alice munched on a cheese stick and mumbled, Mom, are you going to find me a daddy? I stroked Alice's head. Does Alice want a daddy? Alice thought for a moment, then shook her head like a rattle. Daddy, bad guy. Doesn't want us. Beat up daddy. She waved the cheese stick, mimicking fight noises from cartoons. I laughed. Okay. A 30-minute drive took me to Jason's private club. The secretary led the way, her expression cold, unable to resist mocking me. Joan, right? She said indifferently. We'll go in through the back door. I saw the front door wide open. I glanced at it. She laughed. Front door requires registration. A woman like you walking in would be embarrassing enough, wouldn't it? I didn't argue, obediently heading to the back door. She scoffed and followed. I had no intention of annoying her. If the front door required registration, it would indeed be inconvenient to leave my name. Only this way, the upcoming drama would be more surprising. I followed the secretary into a private room. The room was dim and intimate. A few men scattered on the sofas. In the center, the impeccably dressed Jason Saturday. By his side was a tall, stunning woman in a red dress. By the dim light, I recognized her and was stunned. This woman was Lisa. Lisa saw me too, momentarily stunned. In that instant, her eyes almost showed a fierce light, nearly screaming, Why aren't you dead yet? But in the next second, She suppressed that fierceness, softly saying to Jason beside her, "Another classmate coming, huh? Why didn't you tell me?" Jason sipped his whiskey, his expression indifferent. "A classmate. She doesn't deserve to be called one of us." He eyed me coldly, and I understood his look. The message was clear. Since I insisted on coming, I should bear the humiliation myself. Fine, it didn't matter. It's just humiliation. Something I've long been numb to over the years. A few more minutes wouldn't make a difference. I sat on the sofa in the corner, grabbed a fruit plate, and started eating. The man next to me eyed me up, likely one of Jason's friends, already somewhat drunk. Jason sure knows how to pick 'em. Even with Lisa by his side, he finds a girl for a buddy. He reached out, trying to wrap his arm around my waist. "Jason, you've got Lisa, yet you don't forget your friends." A wine glass smashed heavily on the man's hand, and he yelped, jumping off the sofa. "Jason, you?" He looked at Jason, stunned. Jason's wine glass was still in his hand, his face full of anger, poised to throw it but hadn't yet. Someone beat him to it. The glass came from the direction of the door. I looked toward the door. The person standing there was dressed in black, leaning nonchalantly against the doorframe. Beneath his forehead, his narrow, fierce eyes stared hard at the man. The notorious mafia prince, Lucas. No one really knows Lucas's background, but everyone agrees on one thing. Don't mess with him, or you'll find it impossible to do business. "Jason, you've got some nerve," Lucas said darkly. "I haven't even arrived, and you guys are already having fun without me." He sat down next to me and beckoned for me to sit on his lap. "Come here." The man who had previously tried to hold me back off, knowing better than to challenge Lucas for a woman. Jason spoke coldly. "Lucas, Lisa is still here." Lucas chuckled. "Oh, Jason, you actually know Lisa's here. And you still brought Joan here, trying to stir up trouble for Lisa, huh?" Lisa tried to calm them down softly. "You two, stop fighting. We're all classmates." "Classmates?" I recognized that voice and turned around. A man wearing a cap and a mask walked in quickly. He took off his hat and mask, revealing a breathtakingly handsome face. In recent years, he has skyrocketed to fame with that face, winning countless fans. Jack sat down across from me. His skin was pale, and his eyes turned red when he got emotional. "Joan, have you no shame?" Lisa tried to calm him. "Jack, calm down." But Jack was too angry. He pulled away from Lisa's hand and glared at me. "You already have a kid and still want to be Lucas's, or Jason's trophy." Jack has always been amusing. Back in the day, he obediently called me Big Sis, even when he was mad, like a little puppy. I decided to tease him, saying casually, "Yeah, raising a kid costs money. How much money do you need? I'll give it to you." Jack blurted out. Lisa was the first to get upset. "Jack, you're already a big star now. This might cause scandals." But her soft-spoken advice was drowned out by two other voices. "I'll pay for the kids' expenses." That was Jason. "Jack, who do you think you are? You think I can't afford it?" That was Lucas. After speaking, they seemed to understand something and looked at each other. Then, they both turned towards me. I pretended not to notice their gazes, calmly picking a cherry from the fruit bowl and chewing it slowly. So sweet. This whole drama was just as I expected. Before Jason told me about tonight's gathering, Jack and Lucas had already messaged me separately. I checked various sources and quickly concluded that this was the same event. The project being discussed was, without surprise, Jack and Lisa's new movie. Lucas was backing the project, and Jason was the main investor. That's why I messaged Jason, asking to attend. Now, the drama was reaching its predicted climax. Lisa's tone could hardly maintain her usual softness. "Jason, Jack, Lucas, I know you all feel sorry for Joan. I saw yesterday's news. It was really tragic. But the child's origin is unclear. You all have important identities. If you rashly finance this, it will cause trouble." Lisa acted very concerned. "People might say this child is your illegitimate offspring." She stared at their faces, expecting them to immediately deny it and distance themselves from me. But she was met with silence. After a long moment, Jack spoke lowly, his eyes red as blood. "Joan, tell us, whose child is it?" Jason was silent for a moment, then stood up and looked at me. "I said before, the child is innocent. I'm willing to acknowledge it." Lucas stood up as well. "Why should my kid be Jason's?" They stared at each other, dumbfounded. I had finished the cherries in the fruit bowl. The remaining blueberries were sour and didn't taste good. I clapped my hands and stood up, checking the time. It should be about time. As if to prove my point, the door burst open. An excited paparazzi rushed in. Oh my god, the tip was true. The 3 big shots and Lisa in one room. What a sensational scandal. Flashing lights bombarded them, so bright it hurt to keep your eyes open. I had already slipped into a corner and pushed the door open, sneaking out. Running down the hallway, a smile played on my lips. Life has taught me one thing. If someone causes you trouble, the best way out is to trap them in an even bigger mess. Before coming to this event, I had already sent Jason's address to some gossip accounts, tipping them off about a big scoop. Let those three and Lisa get tangled in the media storm together. I have to go home and take care of Alice. I ran out of the club, ready to grab a shared bike. Then I saw someone blocking my way. It was Lisa. She must have slipped out under her agent's cover. It was already late. The rear entrance of the club was silent, as if the world consisted only of the two of us. Just like the rooftop, we fell off together back then. Joan, Lisa looked at me, speaking lowly. Why didn't you die? There was endless hatred in her tone. And fear. I caught that fear and smiled. Lisa, you have everything now, I said softly. Fame, beauty, wealth, and the love of those three. And I have nothing. Do I still scare you? I smiled at her. What? Afraid I'll ruin everything you have? Lisa's face turned deathly pale in an instant. It's hard to imagine that 10 years ago, Lisa was my best friend. At that time, my debut film Remembering had just been released. In the movie, I played a pure and innocent girl named Luna, who had a tragic backstory. She was the object of the male lead's affection during their youth. They shared blissful, clear-as-water days together, but before the male lead could summon the courage to confess his love, I died. After the movie aired, I won more than a dozen newcomer awards, and fan letters poured in like snowflakes. They loved me, thinking that the real-life Joan was just like the film's heroine on the screen. Like Luna, I had a pure and beautiful face, but I came from a harsh background. I never knew my parents, and was raised by my grandfather. After my rise to fame, film offers kept coming in. I could only spend a few days at school each month. The rest of the time, I had to study on set and complete my homework there. Because I seldom went to school, most of my classmates were not familiar with me, except for Lisa, who eagerly befriended me. When I was filming, she often visited the set to help me run lines. At school, she brought me homemade meals from her mom. When I finished eating and wanted to wash the dishes, she would stop me. Didn't you injure your hand riding a horse? Let me do it. As a thank you, I gave her many gifts. Once, a brand sent me a set of perfumes worth tens of thousands of dollars. Lisa kept saying how much she liked it, so I gritted my teeth and gave it to her on her birthday. Back then, Lisa was actually quite pitiful. She wasn't pretty, had sallow skin, and had little presence in class. But after becoming my friend, she got a lot of attention. Boys started approaching her. Lisa once told me excitedly, you know what? Today Jason, the top student in our grade, offered me his notes. He never lends his notes to anyone. And then there was Jack. Oh my gosh, don't you know him? He's the school heartthrob. He also started talking to me. Even Lucas, the notorious bully from class 3, stood up for me when someone tried to bully me today. When Lisa talked about them, her eyes sparkled like there were stars in them. I feel so happy now, like I'm the heroine of a teenage drama. I smiled along with her. At that time, I didn't have a deep impression of Jason, Jack, and Lucas. Jason was slightly better at academics. Jack was slightly more handsome. Lucas was slightly better at fighting. Besides that, they were just ordinary boys to me. I did have some interactions with them. Jason wanted to attend an overseas coding competition, but his family couldn't afford the travel expenses, so I lent him some money from one of my paychecks. Jack got teased by other boys for his looks, and I stood up for him. As for Lucas, I remembered him once getting into a fight and bleeding from the head. I helped him to the nurse's office. In the entertainment industry, where I met countless celebrities, they were indeed just ordinary boys to me. But Lisa liked them, and that was fine. Until one day, when I jokingly asked Lisa if she had decided on one guy as her main crush, she smiled reluctantly, then turned her head away without saying a word. That night, she asked me to join her on the rooftop for some air. It was a building the school was demolishing, with the rooftop only on the second floor. I was a little worried about safety, but Lisa reassured me, it's fine. You'll only get hurt, not die if you fall. She said it lightly. Joan, you know, I've always envied you. The wind blew her sleeve open, revealing scars on her arm. I grabbed her wrist. What happened to your arm? I had occasionally seen her pricking herself with a compass recently, but I hadn't realized how bad it was. She shook her head and grabbed my wrist in return. You have everything, and I have nothing. Her voice was almost inaudible. What are you talking about? The next second, Lisa suddenly smiled. It was the most malicious smile I've ever seen. She screamed, panicked, Joan, please, leave me alone. Her voice pierced the silent night, and in the distance, the security guard's flashlight flickered on. Please, I tried to pull away, but Lisa gripped me tightly, stepped back, and her body suddenly floated in the air. When the security found us, we were both lying below the rooftop. My head hit the stone steps, and I lost consciousness. During my time in the hospital, I had no idea Lisa was crying outside. She told a story I never expected. She said we were never friends. I forced her to stay with me. I bullied her, treating her like a servant, ordering her to wash the dishes after meals. I made her do my homework and cheat for me in exams. If she didn't agree, I pricked her with a compass. The numerous horrifying scars on her wrist were the evidence. First, she cried and told our class teacher, then the vice principal, then the principal, and finally, people from the Education Bureau came, and entertainment reporters came. Lisa kept telling the story over and over again, getting better at it each time. Joan received a gift set from a brand, and she said she liked it, but then tossed it to me, mocking the brand representatives for their tacky outfits. She often forced me to be her assistant on set. I saw her knocking on the director's door in the middle of the night, dressed only in a camisole. That's how she got her acting opportunities. The revelations kept coming, and entertainment reporters became like wolves smelling blood. By the time I was discharged, the negative press was overwhelming. Bullying at school, being a third wheel, using shady means to get ahead, paired with my pure-looking face. It was the explosive contrast everyone wanted to see. The Education Bureau conducted an investigation, but found no evidence. Some classmates did mention seeing Lisa wash dishes for me, but all the other accusations were solely from Lisa's side. But the entertainment industry doesn't need evidence. Masses of people started digging into my past. Initially, being raised by my grandfather gained me some sympathy, but later they discovered my parents. Her mother wasn't a decent person, working as a hostess in nightclubs. She had a child without knowing who the father was, dumped the baby at home, and ran off. No wonder, the daughter is just like her mom, being so promiscuous at such a young age. At the time, I was only 17. Many of the profane words people used to insult me, I hadn't even heard before. I cried and went to the director of my first film. As soon as I walked in, I knelt down, pleading with tears for him to save me. The director let out a long sigh and helped me up. It's useless, girl. You know, people love creating gods, but they love destroying them even more. They enjoy seeing an escort turn good, just as much as they do seeing a goddess fall into the mud. What's real isn't important. What matters is what they want to believe. A month later, the director moved with his whole family. That's when I found out he was implicated and falsely accused of having an inappropriate relationship with me. The next few years were a nightmare. Every brand endorsement I signed got cancelled. Staff who used to like me sneered, still think we're country bumpkins. No director dared to cast me. Every project I signed got cancelled. My agency sued me, demanding a huge compensation. My grandpa fell ill due to the stress, and the doctor said he needed a very costly surgery. Meanwhile, Lisa, who had been the victim in Joan's bullying incident, gained a lot of exposure. She signed with an agency, started as an internet celebrity, and then acted in some small web dramas. She had a nose job and double eyelid surgery. Her sallow skin was covered with foundation. She became more famous and prettier. 10 years later, she was a cherished superstar, while I had fallen into obscurity, a weed that nobody cared about. As she wished, our roles had completely swapped. The day after I went to the club, the internet was flooded with rumors about Lisa and the three big shots. It was said that Jack and Lucas almost got into a fight that day, and Jason stormed off in a rage. As public figures, the three had never lost their composure like that before. The entertainment reporters went wild, saying that Lisa's charm had caused a top-level scandal. Lisa was cornered by reporters and accepted an interview. She smiled and admitted that the three men were vying for her affection, but she hoped everyone would focus on her new drama instead of rumors. The reporters were relentless, asking, "Lisa, the goddess, everyone knows the three big shots have lots of beauties around them. Can you tell us why they all fancy you? Is it because you're their first love?" Another reporter added, "Men never forget their childhood goddesses." A crack appeared in Lisa's sweet demeanor, but she quickly adjusted her smile and shook her head slightly. "First love. I don't know. I just know that people should always strive to be better. After all, who doesn't like excellent people?" The interview ended with a flurry of reporter praises. I turned off the TV and made a bottle for Alice. A phone call came in, asking if I wanted to act. It was probably because the news of me delivering takeout went viral and a production team wanted to use the hype. I asked Alice, "Do you want mommy to act in a drama?" Alice looked at the TV, then at me, as if asking, "Can I see you on TV?" I nodded, yes. Alice immediately nodded excitedly. "Then let's do it." I hadn't had any acting jobs for years. Maybe this was a blessing from above. However, when I arrived at the appointed place and looked up at the title of the drama, I instantly wanted to leave. It was the drama Jack was doing with Lisa. My intuition told me I wasn't called here by accident. Sure enough, before I could leave, two big guys blocked my way. They were part of Lisa's team. Lisa walked up from behind them, holding my hand in front of everyone. "Joan, you're here," she said warmly. "I saw your news and felt terrible. I think your life belongs in movies, but you haven't acted in years. So you'll need to get familiar with the set. So, I've arranged for you to be my body double in this drama." People around us praised Lisa for her kindness. They said, Lisa was bullied back then, but she responded with kindness and still treasures old friendships, giving Joan a job. I looked at Lisa. She glanced at me through narrowed eyes. I knew this was a trap she'd set for me, but I couldn't escape. Lisa dismissed the crowd, and her big guys forced me to sign the contract. "Do a good job, Joan," Lisa whispered. "You have a child, you know." She was using Alice to threaten me. My voice turned icy. "Lisa, if you dare touch my child, one of Jason, Jack, or Lucas will surely come after you." Lisa turned pale. "Is the child really theirs?" I smiled. "What do you think?" On the first day of filming, Lisa claimed she felt unwell and had me do all her blocking. The first scene included wire work. I instantly understood. The wire was definitely rigged, and I would fall if I went up on it. "I'm afraid of heights." I started to make excuses, but the director walked up to me, his face stern. "This is your job," he said, meaning I had no choice. He and Lisa were from the same company. She must have instructed him. I thought for a moment, okay, I'll do it. I took out my phone, showing the contract I took. According to this contract, the production team must provide me with high amount accident insurance. If any human factors cause an accident, there's tenfold compensation and criminal responsibility for the accident. I spoke loudly and tied the rope around myself. "Let's go," I said, securing myself. The technician nearby turned pale. "Lift me up," I said, forcing a sinister smile. "Do you understand what criminal responsibility means? How much are they paying you to go to jail?" The technician paled even more. He looked at the director, but didn't dare to move. "Lift me up," I shouted again. The technician's legs buckled, and he knelt. "Director, my stomach hurts. Can someone else do it?" The director's face turned as black as coal. "Let's shoot the second scene," he said after a long pause. Due to the commotion just now, many people had come over. In the crowd, I noticed two figures, Lucas and Jason. I glanced at the script. The second scene was a kissing scene with Jack. Jack walked over, looking down at me with his long eyelashes and dark eyes. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Jason and Lucas in the crowd, their faces turning icy cold. "When was the last time we kissed?" Jack came close and asked quietly. 3 years ago, I said softly, February 15th. He raised an eyebrow. "You even remember the date?" I smiled. How could I ever forget? Jack's eyes began to show his emotions. He moved closer to me. The air heated up, filled with a romantic vibe. Nearby, a jarring voice interrupted. "Director, I'm ready. Let me do this myself." I turned to see Lisa stepping down from her nanny van. Lisa's sickness was unpredictable. I scoffed lightly and let go of Jack. Jack grabbed me, pulling me into his arms, looking at the director. "Let's finish this scene first." Lisa's face turned pale. "Jack, you." Jack held me tighter. "Big sis," he called softly. It was a line from the script, but many years ago, Jack used to call me that too. He leaned in to kiss me when a loud crash echoed nearby. Lucas kicked down a box of equipment. The equipment scattered across the floor, but he didn't care. Jason walked over with a cold expression. "Stop shooting." "Director, Jason, do you not understand what I'm saying? Stop shooting." Lisa rushed over, grabbing Jason's arm. "Jason, let me continue. Stopping production for a day costs a lot." Jason pulled her hand off. "That's my money being wasted. I'm saying stop shooting now." Lisa was stunned. Jason, although always cold, had never shouted at anyone. With this outburst, how could the audience believe the rumors that he had a crush on Lisa? "Jason, don't be so harsh with me." Jason wasn't calming down. He glared at Lisa. "Did you bring him here?" Nearby, Lucas kicked a worker aside, inspecting the wire ropes. They had obviously been tampered with. "Are you trying to kill someone in our crew?" Lucas punched the worker hard in the face. "Who let this scumbag in?" Silence. No one spoke. Finally, Jack, who had been silent, spoke up. "If I'm not mistaken," he looked at Lisa, "he's your man." That night, it blew up on social media. News of Lisa being summoned by the police spread like wildfire. The footage she thought she had deleted was backed up by Lucas. The video showed Lisa talking with the worker, paying him off, and the worker cutting the ropes clearly. The power of the internet is strong. Soon, old news from 10 years ago resurfaced. 10 years ago, Lisa claimed that Joan had pushed her off a rooftop, and in panic, Lisa grabbed Joan, causing both to fall. but it was always just Lisa's side of the story. The police never arrested Joan, and even the school, due to lack of evidence, took no action. The internet was in an uproar, filming was halted, and I went home to look after Alice, thinking about returning to delivering food. Delivering food is actually a good job, free and good money. Most customers are kind, only a few are difficult. Alice wasn't as clingy to her mom these days. I paid the lady neighbor some money to help look after Alice, so I could go out to earn more confidently. However, a week later, while I was on my delivery route, a van suddenly pulled up beside me. A cloth was pressed over my mouth and nose, and I was dragged into the van. When I woke up, Lisa's face was in front of me. I was tied to a chair, unable to move. She looked at me, speaking softly. "Joan, why? I can't understand why they care so much about you. When you were 17, they almost hated you to death. You were so bad, so filthy, a hypocrite," Lisa repeated, as if brainwashing herself. "They all know you are like this. Jason made everyone isolate you. It was Jack who exposed to everyone that your mom was a slut. Lucas and his gang chased you every day, calling you the worst names." Lisa finally broke down. "I put in so much effort, and they finally hated you. But why did you still connect with them afterwards? Why do they think your child could be theirs?" I looked at her calmly. "True, Jason, Jack, Lucas, they all hurt me deeply. In a way, they were even accomplices to Lisa. Jason, as the student council president, once smiled and invited me to film a promotional video for the council. Later, he forbade everyone from speaking to me, saying anyone who spoke to me would disgrace the school. My mother's past, I only ever told Jack, because this pretty freshman was crying over being bullied by bad boys. To comfort him, I shared how I was often humiliated because of my mother. After I got into trouble, he told everyone, proving I was a bad seed by birth. Lucas led a gang of delinquents, chasing me to and from school, cursing at me, even scaring my grandpa, who came to pick me up. That year, thanks to them, I had to drop out of school and was diagnosed with severe depression. What made them love me afterwards? Lisa was still crying in front of me, and I simply felt tired. Closing my eyes, I fell into a dark memory. The director said, "People want to see a goddess fall into the mud, but I was just an ordinary person." Yet back then, I truly did fall into the mud. I had the chance to attend the best arts academy, but I gave it up. During the day, I worked 3 jobs. At night, I took care of Grandpa. I worked as a waitress, handed out flyers, even made handmade earrings to sell. At first, people recognized me. Later, no one did. In this fast-paced internet age, even top celebrities find it hard to stay relevant, let alone a newbie who only appeared in a couple of dramas. I thought no one would remember me anymore. Until one day at the restaurant, a suited man called out to me, "Joan." I looked back. The man in the suit had a stern look. It took me a moment to remember his name. Jason, the student council president, who always ranked first despite his poor background. Jason wanted me to be his kept woman, and I agreed. For a simple reason, I needed money. I owed the agency compensation, and Grandpa had surgery fees. Debt collectors loitered at my door every day, pulling my collar. Even if you have to sell yourself, you have to pay back the money. I was in so much pain, almost numb. If it weren't for Grandpa, I would have already committed suicide. It didn't matter anymore. If I had to sell, might as well sell to Jason. Thinking that, I accepted the transfer. The moment I took the money, Jason's eyes were filled with such disgust. "Joan, you really are this kind of person." "What kind? An immaculate goddess is just your imagination. A filthy whore is also your imagination. Clarifying is useless. Defending is useless. I am too lazy to even open my mouth." I confirmed the bank transfer and started unbuttoning my shirt. Jason grabbed me, his eyes practically shooting flames. "What, isn't this what you want?" I thought for a moment and then it hit me. "You like Luna, don't you? That makes sense." Back then, Jason wasn't as rich as he is now, but he was already a somewhat famous entrepreneur. Many actresses had taken a liking to him. If it was beauty he wanted, he could have as much as he wanted. The only thing worth his money was his first love from youth. That first love wasn't the angel-faced, devil-hearted Joan, but the Luna who died early in the movie. No problem, that makes it easier for me. I wore a white dress, white canvas shoes, my long hair reaching my waist, and no makeup. We rode our bikes around the sea, shared the same ice cream, and had silver rings with our names customized at an old shop. I looked at the ring and beamed. Jason is the best. In that moment, Jason looked at me with eyes so gentle it could almost drown someone. But the next second, he would usually snap out of it. "Nice performance," he asked coldly. "Joan, were all your actions at school just an act?" I thought for a second. What actions? Lending money to him back then. That 17-year-old Jason, wearing a white shirt, thin-backed, leaving a beautiful handwritten note for me in secret. "Thanks, I'll repay you." This is how he repays me. Does it matter if it was an act? I nodded, intentionally provoking him. "Jason, you like Luna, not me, right?" At these moments, Jason would give me a cold and disdainful look. "Joan, you can leave now." The second person I ran into was Jack. Back then he was famous, but not as big as he is now. I passed by a restaurant and saw him filming a City Idol drama inside. The assistant director was looking for extras and grabbed me immediately when he saw me. "Miss, do you want to act?" He didn't recognize me, didn't know I had already acted in a movie. I actually loved acting. Being a good actress was once my lifelong dream. Why not? It was just a background role, no big deal. But Jack recognized me. He shouted for a cut, pointing at me. "Get her out." The assistant director was shocked, but Jack was the biggest star on set, so he didn't dare to say anything. "Miss, please leave." I left the restaurant, but before I could turn the corner, Jack caught up with me. In the alley, it was just the two of us. The once obedient boy who thanked me now stood tall, someone I had to look up to. Gritting his teeth, Jack said quietly, "Joan, you still have the face to act. I'm telling you, as long as I'm around, you can't fool anyone in this industry." I watched his eyes for a long time, and saw something very similar to what I saw in Jason's. So I smiled. "Jack, I can act for you too." "Act what?" "Luna." Making 1 money wasn't enough, 3 was better. So when I met Lucas, I had no hesitation. By then, he had finally made a name for himself, had a bunch of loyal buddies, and supposedly an adopted father who was a big shot. I was working at a KTV, and saw him bring his buddies in to drink. A girl beside him kept trying to get close to him. "Get lost," Lucas said rudely. "I don't like fake innocence." He chased the girl away, and then looked at me. Countless times afterwards, I used this line to mock Lucas. Whenever he looked at me in my white dress with a slightly moved expression, I would immediately remind him, "Lucas, don't forget, you don't like fake innocence." He would angrily smash the ashtray. "Get lost." I would leave unceremoniously, taking his money with me. Back then, thanks to them, I had to drop out of school and was diagnosed with severe depression. But now, thanks to them, I paid the contract penalty and covered my grandpa's surgery. On the day of my grandpa's surgery, I was planning to wait outside the operating room, but Jason, Jack, and Lucas kept calling, demanding I accompany them. When I hung up, they kept calling. Jason said he could sue me for fraud. Jack said he would hire paparazzi to follow me. Lucas said his guys would come for me, and if they couldn't find me, they'd go after my grandpa. I knew it was time to cut things off. I remember it clearly. That day 3 years ago on February 15th, the day my grandpa went into surgery, and the last time I saw those 3. That night, I saw each of them one by one. The next day when they woke up, their heads were aching from the hangover, clothes scattered everywhere. After that, they never found me again. Until the news broke about me delivering food, they got wind of me once again. And they learned about Alice's existence. The memories ended. I woke up with a splitting headache. Lisa had locked me in an abandoned garage. She seemed deranged. More and more scandalous stuff was coming out about her, pushing her close to social death. Netizens pieced together a lot. Oddly, I didn't feel particularly joyful. People only see what they want to see. 10 years ago, they wanted to see a goddess fall into the mud, desperately gathering evidence of me bullying Lisa. 10 years later, they wanted to see injustice corrected, desperately gathering evidence that I was wrongly accused, and Lisa was the real bully. "I'm tired. I just want to sleep forever." Lisa didn't give me food or water, making me weaker by the day. She watched her phone in front of me daily, sometimes crying, sometimes laughing. I got curious and used the last of my strength to ask her, "Who do you really love?" She was stunned and shot back, "Who do you really love?" I shook my head. "I love no one." Lisa froze, then started laughing maniacally. She recorded and brought the phone to my mouth. "Say it again." "I love no one." I repeated softly. "Say you're a slut who played with all 3 of them." "I am a slut who played with all 3 of them." Lisa laughed crazily and sent that recording to Jason, Jack, and Lucas. "They all need to hear this." Lisa's face gleamed with confidence. "Let's see if any of them still consider you their first love after this." I watched her and laughed too. So dumb. Lisa has always been this dumb. 40 minutes later, sending the email gave away her location, and Lisa was arrested by the police. Half conscious, I was rescued and rushed to the hospital. In the half month I stayed in the hospital, all the injustices against me were finally cleared. The truth from 10 years ago came to light. On my way back, it was pouring rain. A solitary figure knelt in the downpour. I squinted and saw who it was. It was Jason. For the past half month, I had rejected all visitation requests, but I never thought Jason would kneel in front of my house just to see me. He was soaked, looking up at me. "Joan, I'm sorry." I stayed silent. "Too late. Please go, Jason," I said. "You love Luna." "I'm too old to play Luna now." Luna was every boy's first love, pure and beautiful, dying in the prime of her youth. But I'm 27, weathered by life, no longer a 17-year-old girl. "So, you don't need to come to me anymore. We have no reason to meet." I turned to leave, but Jason almost desperately called out to me, "Joan." He stayed quiet for a long time, before speaking in the pouring rain. "I didn't watch that movie. I love you, Joan." I stopped in my tracks. Some faint connections began to piece together in my mind. Why did they approach Lisa? Because back then, I wasn't often at school, and Lisa was my only close friend. So, they were actually trying to get close to me. I turned back to look at Jason. Rain poured down, mist rising. I walked up to him and asked softly, "Do you really love me?" His eyes lit up. "Joan, of course I do." "No," I said firmly. "Jason, if you really loved me, you wouldn't have treated me like that." He was silent, lips trembling. I didn't know how to love someone back then. His voice shook like a leaf in a storm. "I couldn't even talk to you. I thought you were so perfect, and compared to you, I felt so ordinary. So when the bullying news came out, I was in pain. I thought I loved the wrong person. But then, I was also happy," he mumbled. "I thought, finally, I was worthy of you. There were so many boys who liked you. But if you were ruined, you'd belong only to me." After 10 years, all these dark thoughts finally spilled out. I sighed softly, kneeling down to cover his head with my umbrella. Jason's face immediately lit up with hope. "Joan, the child is mine, isn't it?" he asked. "Remember, on February 15th last year?" I shook my head and whispered something in his ear. Jason's face turned ashen. "Even if the child isn't mine, it doesn't matter," Jason insisted. "I can raise him. I'd be a good dad." I shook my head and turned to leave. Joan, Jason panicked, crawling a few steps in the rain, trying to keep me. "Can we start over? Give me a chance. I'll learn how to love you this time." "But I've never loved you," I said softly. Jason looked like he'd been slapped, frozen in place. Holding up my umbrella, I looked up at the sky. The rain poured down, and I laughed lightly. "Whether I rise or fall, whether you see me as a goddess or a whore, I have never changed. And I never liked you." I left an umbrella next to Jason and walked away. Eventually, I looked back and saw Jason still kneeling in the rain. He didn't use the umbrella, remaining frozen like a black statue. Later, Jack publicly apologized to me at a news conference. This meant admitting to the bullying, ending his career. Lucas came to me with a knife. "Joan, if stabbing me a few times will earn your forgiveness, then do it." The knife's glint scared Alice, so I kicked Lucas out. Unexpectedly, Lucas snuck back in later with cheese sticks for Alice. When I came home, Lucas was actually teaching Alice. "I'm your daddy," he said. "Say, Daddy." Alice lifted her chubby hand and slapped him hard. Lucas was furious, but didn't dare strike back. So he looked at me. "Jack and Jason both said you denied the child was theirs." So, I laughed softly. "Lucas, how many times do I need to say it? The child isn't yours." 3 years ago, on February 15th, after taking your money, I played the role of Luna in front of you. But I never had relations with any of you. Ever wonder why you woke up with a headache and hazy memory? It was because your drink was spiked. That night, I saw you 3 separately, giving each of you spiked drinks. Because I knew you'd keep pestering me, even threatening my grandfather's safety. I needed to use that confusion to leave the city with him. To throw you off, I staged the scene a bit. I shrugged. It was actually pretty crude, but you all believed it. Lucas's face went pale. "Then why didn't you leave?" "Because my grandfather's surgery failed," I said softly. "He passed away." Lucas was stunned. That night, after taking care of the 3 men, I rushed back to the hospital at dawn. Awaiting me outside was his primary doctor, who quietly gave me the news after my sleepless night. The surgery didn't succeed. During my grandfather's entire funeral process, I didn't shed a single tear. It was strange, like a switch that controls pain had been turned off inside me. I was completely numb. Holding his ashes, I went back to the old house. These past few years, I've been working all over the place, rarely coming back to the old house I used to live in. Grandpa was always taken care of by a nurse. It wasn't until today, after Grandpa passed away, that I finally returned here. The old house remained the same. A row of dolls sat on a shelf, each one dressed in clothes Grandpa had sewn for me. By the door, there were several dusty bags of Satchama. I loved these as a kid, but Grandpa only allowed me to eat one piece a day to avoid cavities. He probably bought so many hoping I'd come back and eat them. I set down the urn, placed the portrait, and cleaned the room. Finally, from Grandpa's bedside table, I found a movie poster. It was the poster for Unforgettable, featuring 17-year-old me, looking fresh and innocent like morning dew, shyly biting my lip at the camera. Printed below were the words, "The best Luna." My barely literate grandpa had crossed out Luna and clumsily written my name beside it. Joan, the best Joan. That night, holding the poster, it felt like a faucet turned on inside me. I cried my heart out. On the wall, Grandpa, encased in a frame, looked at me gently. You see, there's still someone in this world who loves the real you. After Grandpa passed away, I got my affairs in order. There wasn't much property to distribute. After paying off the compensation and surgery fees with what I got from Jason, Jack, and Lucas, there wasn't much left. I planned to end my days by the sea in a neighboring city. I didn't want to do it here, feeling that Grandpa's spirit might still be around, and it would make him sad. I bought a late-night high-speed train ticket. On my way to the station, I passed by an old district. It was the dirtiest street in our city. Neon lights from bars hung high, drunk men swore, women in tattered fishnet stockings stood by the street, and the air reeked of vomit. I pulled my coat tighter, wanting to get out of there fast. But then, I heard a faint cry. It came from a trash bin. A tiny, tiny baby. I looked around. Her mother was probably one of those women, unable to care for her, so she left her there. Just like my mother left me with Grandpa. She was crying, almost frozen stiff. Her cries grew weaker. I remembered what the therapist had once told me. He said, "Miss Joan, you need to find a reason to live." He was right. I picked up the tiny baby. She didn't have a name yet. When I was little, Grandpa gave me a nickname, Alice. I thought it was old-fashioned and odd, and refused to be called that. Grandpa chuckled and said, "What do you know? For kids, it's a name that brings good luck." Now Grandpa was gone. No one would call me that anymore. I touched the baby's back, wrapping her in my coat. "Let's go, Alice." "Grandpa, don't lie to me." I gave her that lucky name. "This is my daughter now. You in heaven, take good care of us." Later, Lisa was sentenced to prison for multiple crimes. She was constantly visited by reporters, and every time, she complained about how she was falsely accused. But no one believed her. Lisa got crazier and crazier, torturing herself in every way possible, then shouting that it was all Joan's doing. Eventually, Lisa suffered from severe mental breakdown, and was sent to a hospital. In a distracted moment, she ran to the rooftop, screaming for Joan to let her go, then jumped off. No one knew if she screamed that out of guilt, tormented by dreams of me, or was trying to use the clumsy trick that worked when she was 17, to frame me once more. The truth would never be known, for this time, the rooftop wasn't a low, abandoned two-story building. Lisa was dead, and I was making a comeback. My new movie was a big hit. At the press conference, a journalist asked, "Miss Joan, as a woman and actress, you lost the best 10 years of your youth to lies from a friend, living under insult and slander, and now you've received flowers and applause. How do you feel about that?" I was silent for a long while, then I smiled. "I've always been Joan. Others might not understand, but I do. And that's enough." After the press conference, Jason, Jack, and Lucas were waiting at the front door. They still wanted to see me, so I quietly slipped out the back. It was nighttime. I took off my high heels and glided through a quiet alley. In the dirty puddle on the ground, there was the reflection of the moon. The dirtier the water, the brighter the moon. No matter if the world insults or praises me, I am always Joan. For 1,000 years, I stay serene and radiant.